tell, do you see the road? I'm out to my soul into the size whenever the smoke clear out of my face and my picture perfect.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to Cypherfics. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the 19th part of What If BEN10 Meets the Boys? Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of AU Fan 62 on fanfictionnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Grandpa Max and seemed like they were in the clear as no large swam was coming at them. But as they rounded a corner they were forced to double back as a relentless wave of ants swarmed from a cracked foundation wall, pouring over the dirt and debris like a tide. Get to higher ground. Max told and they soon began hoisting themselves up onto stacks of wooden pallets, until grabbing hold of a metal ladder bolted to a scaffolding frame. Where the heck are they all coming from? Gasped as he looked down to see a sea of red moving specks. Don't know, but if they get in my socks, I'm setting myself on fire. Max growled, as they continued to climb. Eventually they got to a point where they couldn't climb any higher. Fortunately Max saw a way out. He spotted a heavy steel beam stretching out from a nearby crane, and a thick power cable hanging nearby. Hang on. He muttered, then pulled out a wrench from and grabbed the cable, tying a quick knot around the tool. You're not seriously, started. But Max was already swinging the makeshift grappling hook in a wide arc. With a grunt, he launched it toward the beam. The wrench caught with a solid clang, the cable going taut. Let's go. Max barked, tossing the other end to The two men jumped in sync, gripping the cable and swinging out just as the ants swarmed where they were standing. They soared over the army of bugs and landed on the ground, Max to a crouching position, rolled to the ground. Come on, we have to go. Max urged as he helped up. Okay, how the hell are you in better shape than me? Asked as they moved. I've dealt with worse things than bugs. Max simply replied. Scene cut. The old factory groaned under its own age, every creak of metal echoed by the restless hum of beetles crawling over every surface. High above the ground, Mayor Winslow writhed in his cocoon, suspended by a thick, glistening cord of silk. Below, Clancy stood still, his arms folded behind his back, eyes cold and full of venom. Tiny jaws worked relentlessly, and with each second, more strands of silk frayed where the rope anchored. The beetles had begun to chew. The mayor's terrified eyes darted down to the swarm waiting beneath him. No, no, no. He cried, twisting against his bonds. Then. Snap. The silk tore free and the mayor dropped. But just as he plummeted toward the chittering tide of beetles, a vine-like appendage grabbed Bim Wildvine swooped down in a blur of motion, snatching the mayor from certain doom and swinging up toward a rusted catwalk. Phew. Approval readings don't get much lower than that. Ben quipped as Wildvine. Mayor Winslow gasped, eyes wide with panic. I need to get out of here. He shrieked, scrambling to his feet and bolting down the catwalk without another word. Yeah, sure, don't thank the hero who saved you or anything. Wildvine muttered, watching the mayor vanish into the shadows like a terrified raccoon in a business suit. From below, Clancy's voice rose with venom. You, he hissed, glaring up at the plant-based alien. You destroyed my home and I won't let you destroy this one. Wildvine tilted his head with exaggerated confusion. Really, dude? He gestured around at the crumbling factory walls, the mold-eaten rafters and rusted support beams. Pretty sure a decent gust of wind would finish this place off. So how about you save us both the trouble and just surrender? Clancy responded the only way he knew how, by snarling and hurling a stream of beetles like a living projectile, the mass surging toward Wildvine in a seething wave. Guess that's a no. Wildvine muttered. He dropped backward off the catwalk, flipping in midair. As his vine arm latched onto the underside of the railing, he used his momentum to swing forward. In one fluid motion, he pulled a plant grenade from the satchel on his back and hurled it straight at Clancy. The grenade burst in midair with a loud bang, that scattered the swarm, momentarily disorienting the advancing beetles. Clancy shielded his face, staggering back as the bugs hissed and recoiled. Wildvine swung up to a new platform, planting himself firmly. "Round 2, Bug Boy," he said, vines curling and ready. Wildvine launched forward with a WHP crack of his vines, landing on the same platform as Clancy. With a grunt, he lashed out, one limb snapping into Clancy's torso and sending him stumbling back into a rusted support beam. Clancy growled and sent a new swarm from beneath his coat, but Wildvine was already in motion. He ducked low, then spun, sending several more of his grenades at Clancy, who merely raised a wall of bugs to block it. "Come on, man. For a guy who talks about bugs being unstoppable, you're not really bringing your A-game," Wildvine said, flipping up onto a beam and preparing another attack. He leapt down with a flying kick but just as he was midair. Beep 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 beep. Red flash. Oof. Grunted Ben as he fell on his butt. "Aw, come on," he exclaimed in annoyance. Really forgot how annoying that was. He then heard buzzing coming from Clancy, who was getting ready to send a large swarm at him. "Don't suppose we can talk about this?" But the buzzing continued. Scene cut. The trio sprinted through a corridor flanked by stacks of cinder blocks and rusted rebar, the thunderous clacking of beetle legs pounding behind them, bulldozing through debris like tiny battering rams. Huey glanced back, his eyes wide. Why do they sound like tap-dancing tanks? Less talking, more legging it. Butcher barked. "Left. Go left," he shouted, seeing a left and a right turn, and made a decision. Kimiko, not missing a beat, kicked over a stack of metal rods as they turned a corner, sending them clattering behind them in hopes of slowing the swarm. As they pushed forward, they spotted a corroded valve poking from a half-buried pipe. A faded, rusted sign above it read, "Caution, fire main." "There!" Butcher shouted, pointing. "That might do something." Without hesitation, he and Huey dropped to their knees and grabbed the valve. It stuck. Huey grunted, bracing his foot against the pipe as he tried to twist it. "Oh, brilliant deduction, Sherlock." Butcher snapped, straining to budge the wheel. "Wanna tell me the sky's blue next?" Kimiko stepped forward, shoved the two aside with a roll of her eyes, and grabbed the valve. With a grunt, she twisted hard. Snap! The valve broke free with a metallic crack, followed by a deafening whoosh. A torrent of water exploded from the pipe like a horizontal geyser, instantly slamming into the front line of beetles. The chittering swarm was thrown into chaos, bodies tumbling and skidding across the concrete. The blast of water didn't spare the humans, either it hit them like a freight train, launching all three off their feet and sending them skidding into a runoff trench. They landed in a shallow basin with a wet, echoing splat. Butcher sat up, coughing and drenched, as Kimiko flipped her hair out of her face and squeezing water out of it. Huey just lied on the ground groaning. "I feel like a bootleg water park exploded on me." Scene cut. The wasps shrieked as they pursued the trio across a fractured foundation, wings buzzing like chainsaws in a blender. Their stingers caught the sunlight gleaming, twitching, ready to jab. "Do they ever get tired?" Elena shouted, ducking under a flapping tarp that nearly caught her head. "Ugh! What's taking my doofy cousin so long?" Gwen snapped, swatting at a wasp that buzzed past her ear. Frenchie suddenly veered off, yanking a tarp over himself like a cape as he sprinted toward a cement mixer truck half-jutting from an unfinished loading dock. "Into the pipe!" he called, pointing dramatically to a large ventilation duct balanced at an angle between two gravel heaps. Gwen and Elena didn't think just of. The echo of their scrambling filled the duct as the swarm of wasps surged in after them, a high-pitched scream in their wake. Does he even have a plan? Gwen panted as she crawled. We're about to find out. Elena muttered grimly. They reached the other end and scrambled out just in time to see Frenchie beaming like a mad scientist at the rear of the cement truck. With a flourish, he yanked a lever. The drum groaned, then began to churn, pouring thick, oozing cement into the open end of the duct. The wasps didn't even have time to react. They slammed headlong into the gray flood wings trapped, stingers twitching before disappearing under the bubbling sludge. Gwen and Elena hit the ground in a dusty heap just before the cement sealed the tunnel like a tomb. Elena lay there, breathless. Okay. That was terrifying. And kinda cool. Frenchie strolled over proudly, hands on his hips. A cement soufflé à la vengeance. Gwen sat up, brushing dust off. Next time, give us a warning before almost turning us into statues, thanks. Frenchie shrugged. Art is spontaneous, share. Scene cut. Max and rushed into an open clearing littered with half-constructed scaffolding and a half-buried bulldozer resting under a tarp. For a moment, it looked like the coast was clear. Then the clicking started. From cracks in the foundation and gaps in the dirt, the ants began to pour. Thousands of them, forming an undulating carpet of black and red. Max's eyes darted to the bulldozer. You ever drive one of those? I'm from Harlem, not Bob the Builder Man. Said. Max pointed to the cab. I'll drive. You distract the colony. Of course I'm the bait. Groaned, yanking a steel pipe from the ground. Let's go, you crunchy nightmares. He charged across the dirt, shouting and banging the pipe against metal. The swarm followed instantly, crawling over each other to reach him. Meanwhile Max climbed inside the bulldozer and after flipping a few switches, he pumped the ignition, and slammed his palm on the throttle lever. The engine roared to life with a deep growl. Come on, you overgrown lawnmower. Max muttered. Led the ants right past the front blade. Now, Max. Please. With a hiss of hydraulics, the bulldozer's blade dropped and it surged forward like a tank. The metal monster cut through the swarm, the blade plowing through earth and insects alike. Ants were crushed beneath the treads or scattered in every direction, chittering in confusion. Ran alongside and grabbed the side rail, hauling himself up into the cab. After taking care of the insects, Max and stepped off with wiping some sweat from his brow. I know the kid talked all the crazy stuff you guys did, but is it always this crazy? Max shrugs. Son, you don't know the half of it. Scene cut. Ben sprinted across the ruined factory floor, his sneakers slapping against cracked concrete as Clancy's swarm surged after him. Beetles poured from the walls like living rivers, their tiny mandibles snapping hungrily. Running won't save you, boy. Clancy barked, riding atop a rolling wave of insects like some twisted surfboard. Well, it's working so far. Ben called over his shoulder. He dove under an old conveyor belt just as a mass of beetles leapt at him, missing his heel by inches. He rolled and popped back up, only to duck immediately as a swarm flew at his face like a cloud of angry baseballs. He grabbed a dangling chain from above, swung himself sideways, and barely cleared a collapsing metal beam Clancy had knocked loose. Seriously, ever heard of personal space? Ben shouted, skidding around a stack of crates. The bugs chased him relentlessly, slipping between gaps, chewing through obstacles. Ben glanced down at his omnitrix, which was still red. Of course. Because why would it work when I need it? He groaned. Clancy raised his arms theatrically. There's no escape. You're just another pest to be squashed. Ben juked left, then right, avoiding more streams of bugs snapping at him. He leapt over a broken girder and landed hard, stumbling a few steps before catching himself. The swarm closed in fast, cutting off every exit. Ben's back hit a corroded wall. He was trapped, so he looked down at the omnitrix again, hoping for it to turn green. Anytime. Ben muttered. Now would be perfect. As the swarm surged forward. Beep. The omnitrix flashed green and Ben's grin exploded across his face. Oh yeah. He quickly activated it and slammed his palm down. Green flash. Gut rot. Ben shouted as he transformed into the very alien. Clancy looked at him with confusion. What is this? Gutrot flexed his arms with a mischievous laugh. Yak, now what they say, whoever smelt it, dealt it. With a theatrical fling of his arms, he unleashed a massive cloud of noxious green gas, filling the air in seconds. The bugs shrieked and skittered away, overwhelmed by the foul stench. Clancy coughed and gagged, covering his mouth. What cough, what is this? Gutrot strolled through the swirling stink like he was on a victory lap, shrugging. Just clearing the air. You filthy little brat. He coughed, bugs scattering around him in a panic. Gutrot grinned beneath his breathing apparatus. Man, you really gotta work on your lung capacity. Clancy snarled and tried to lunge forward, bugs forming a swirling mass around his arms that were more resistant to the gas, but Gutrot was ready. Special Dolivery. Gutrot declared, shooting out a second blast, this one thicker, heavier, and shimmering faintly in the air. As soon as Clancy breathed a little bit of it, his knees buckled and with a muffled grunt, he collapsed face first onto the dusty concrete with a thud. Gutrot strolled up casually, giving the unconscious villain a nudge with his boot to make sure he was out cold. Guess he couldn't handle the atmosphere. Ben quipped, as the last of the bugs scattered away. Scene cut. A bound and unconscious Clancy was hoisted into the back of a heavily reinforced prison van, its doors slamming shut with a loud metallic clang. The vehicle rumbled off down the cracked road, flanked by police cruisers and a few nervous-looking pest control personnel. At a short distance, Ben, Grandpa Max, Gwen, Frenchie, Kimiko, Huey, Butcher, and Elena stood watching the whole scene unfold, catching their breath after the chaos. Hey! Ben spoke up, wiping a smudge of dirt off his face and pointing across the lot. What's with that? He gestured to a group of cops handcuffing Mayor Winslow and loading him none too gently into the back of a police car. Butcher smirked and folded his arms. Turns out the old mayor there wasn't just cutting corners, he was trying to steamroll the whole place before some bleeding heart scientists could stop him. Max nodded grimly. Apparently, some researchers found a rare insect species here. One they thought was extinct. A protected species. Gwen added, crossing her arms. If the news had gotten out, it would have shut down his whole honey empire before it even launched. Frenchie shook his head. Mon Dieu, the man tried to pave over nature itself for a few extra dollars. Shakes his head in disapproval. Horrible. And Clancy. Huey said, still panting a bit. He kind of wasn't completely wrong. Even if mass bug attacks and kidnapping wasn't exactly the way to protest. Ben whistled low. So, wait, he pointed to the departing van with Clancy. He was sort of the guy this time. Elena snorted. More than Vought. But. Max said firmly. It's no excuse for what Clancy did. People got hurt. But at least the real villain's getting a ride downtown too. Gwen said, nodding toward the mayor's car as it rolled away. Ben shrugged, glancing at the wrecked factory. Well, today's lesson: sometimes the bugs aren't the creepiest thing crawling around. Kimiko smirked silently in agreement. Butcher slapped a hand on Ben's shoulder. That's the real world, mate. Ben just grinned. Real world's overrated. Alien hero world's way more fun. The group chuckled a little, battered and muddy, but victorious. They then headed back towards the twin rust buckets for fresh showers and a rest. Next day. A golden sunset blanketed the riverbank near Mount Rushmore, casting long shadows across the camp. The rust bucket sat parked nearby, a fire pit waiting to be lit, lawn chairs scattered loosely around it. In the center, Ben and Gwen stood proudly, arms full of snacks. "I've got the marshmallows," Gwen declared, holding up the bag with a triumphant smile. "And I've got the graham crackers," Ben added, matching her energy, waving his own bag like a victory flag. "We'll wait here while you get the firewood, so we can make s'mores," Gwen said sweetly as she and her cousin gave each other an overly cheerful side hug. Nearby, lounging with sodas and chips, were Butcher, Frenchie, Huey, Kimiko, and Elena, soaking up a rare moment where they didn't have to worry about being ambushed by Vought or blindsided by one of Ben's villains. "Okay, that's definitely suspicious," Elena commented, raising an eyebrow as she sipped her soda. Max, finishing up at the fire pit, wiped his hands and chuckled. "Now it's so nice to finally see you two getting along," he said warmly. "I'll be back in a jiffy." The second he disappeared into the woods with his hatchet. "This is your fault." Ben and Gwen barked at each other, almost in perfect stereo. "Grandpa only turned 60 once." Gwen snapped, her eyes narrowing dangerously. The boys froze mid-snack, glancing around. Did they just go from Hallmark to WWE in 2 seconds? Huey muttered, mouth half full of chips. Frenchie tilted his head thoughtfully. "It's like watching two small dogs fight over a steak." "If Benji ain't shifting, my money's on the ginger," Butcher said with an amused grin, jerking his thumb toward Gwen. Just shook his head, gruff and resigned. "Someone's gettin' decked." "Guaranteed." Kimiko nodded, munching on some chips. Meanwhile, the kids were fully in meltdown mode. Gwen shoved a crumpled piece of paper into Ben's face. "I had his party totally wired. It was perfect." Ben yanked it away. "You chose his birthday wish?" he exclaimed. "Control freak much? And how's he supposed to make a wish without a cake?" Gwen shot back. "That you were supposed to get." Ben threw his hands in the air. Excuse me? Full-time hero here," he said, tapping the omnitrix. "Plus, I was in another dimension for what felt like months." He paused, blinking. "I don't even remember what month this is." "Oh, please." Gwen scoffed. "You can't keep using that excuse. When would he even have used that before?" Elena whispered to the others, baffled. Ben pressed on, indignant. "When would I have time to pick up some cake? You were supposed to do it. And anyway, it's not a big deal." Frenchie wandered over, intrigued. "Mon petit cousins, did you say cake?" Huey scratched his head, confused. "This whole freakout's about cake." Gwen, without missing a beat, jabbed her finger dramatically at Ben. "He was supposed to pick up Grandpa Max's birthday cake." Ben shot right back, mirroring her. "And he scheduled the whole thing like it's the Super Bowl." Butcher leaned back in his chair, grinning wide. "So basically, we're looking at the Great Cake Crisis," he joked. "Told you it was something important," deadpan to Kimiko, who smirked and popped a peanut into her mouth. Trying to be helpful, Elena waved a hand. "Guys, can't you just grab one real quick?" But Ben and Gwen ignored her, facing off with grim determination. "Play you to see who goes. Rock, paper, scissors, on 3. Ben barked. "You are so on." Gwen shot back, her smirk almost evil. "You always lose." I meant use the omnitrix to go get one faster." Elena called after them, but it was no use. They squared up, fists poised for battle. 1, 2. FOOM. A swirling yellow portal suddenly ripped open in the air between them, the energy pulsing wildly. Ben's eyes widened. "Okay, this can't be good." Before anyone could react, a masked woman cloaked in deep blue with the shimmering charms of bezel strung across her arms shot out of the portal. Ben and Gwen dove to opposite sides, but the figure moved fast, swooping low and grabbing Gwen in a blink. Gwen! Ben roared. Without hesitation, he slammed the omnitrix down. Green flash. XLR-8 blasted forward in a blur of lightning blue, racing after the portal as it shrank, barely diving through before it sealed shut behind them. The campsite fell into stunned silence as the boys just gawked at the now empty clearing. Did we all just see that? Butcher asked flatly. Is this still about cake? Huey cried, voice cracking. Frenchie shrugged grandly. Typical family gathering, no. I knew this camping trip was too DMN quiet. Grumbled, folding his arms. Kimiko raised a hand, signing a quick, now what? Before anyone could answer, the portal suddenly reopened with a flash. Ben and Gwen tumbled out, landing HRD on the dirt, Ben clutching some sort of metallic box with a glowing red button on top. Groaning, they sat up, brushing off leaves and pine needles. Butcher stomped over, hands on his hips. Where the hell did you two disappear to? Ben grinned wide, trying to look cool. We went back to the future. The boys stared blankly. You're telling me you been to the future and another dimension in 2 days? Huey blurted. Gwen rolled her eyes. It's a long story. Elena pointed at the device Ben held. What's with the box? Ben shrugged, examining it. My future self gave it to me. Said it was for Grandpa Max. MM's brow furrowed. You met your future self? Ben smirked proudly. Yeah. We're awesome. He flipped the box open and pressed the big red button. With a technological morph, a perfect birthday cake materialized in Ben's hands, candles already flickering. At the exact same moment, Max emerged from the woods, arms full of firewood. He stopped mid-step, staring at just the backs of his family and the interdimensional travelers. Did I miss something? He asked, then saw the kids turn around, grinning as they held a cane. Surprise! Everyone shouted together. Happy birthday, Grandpa! Ben said. We got you a cake. Max's eyes softened, a genuine smile lighting up his face. You kids are the best. He said warmly, setting the firewood down. With a quiet laugh. The fire pit crackled to life as the first marshmallows hit the flames. Laughter and the smell of roasted sugar filled the crisp evening air. As the sun slipped behind the mountains, painting the sky a deep violet, they all gathered, close family, friends, heroes, and misfits alike, to celebrate Grandpa Max's 60th birthday. A day none of them would ever forget. Megamalopolis, Minnesota. The Tennysons were still on the road trip across North America, with and boys joining them. Admittedly, they desired to head back to their home dimension to stop Vought and protect their families, but until any of Max's contacts he put feelers out towards responded, all they had to do was wait. Which is what led them to Minnesota's infamous Megamalopolis. Now they were exiting country's largest mall, with Gwen continuing to read the mall booklet as they head back to the Rust Bucket with their shopping. 500 stores, 72 restaurants, 48 movie screens, an indoor roller coaster. Peered over her shoulder. How does all that stuff fit in this place? Best not to think about it, Butcher said, patting him on the shoulder as they walked. This mall has almost everything. Ben said, with a smile. Oh yeah, what's missing? Elena questioned. Didn't see one version of Battlefield or Call of Duty in there. Ben stated, then upon further thought added. But then again, they don't exist here. And received a playful shove from Elena. So what did you guys get? Huey asked, glancing over to the others. Still surprised they took our money. With pride, smiled as he pulled out a box for a doll. Got this for my daughter. It's the exact one Monique wanted to give her, 'cause it was the first doll her mom got her when she was a kid. Shows it to Huey. One of the first commercial dolls that genuinely looked like one of us. Well, blimey. Butcher responded, pulling out his 2 purchases. I just got me some hooch and something for terror when we get back, he said, squeezing the chew toy he got from a pet mart. I thought you didn't have a dog, Huey asked, remembering when they first met earlier. Figures you'd get that, said, not shocked by Butcher's purchase. What about you, Huey? Oh well, Huey tried to say, opening his bag. Toys, stated blankly as he saw Huey had purchased several action figures and trading cards. You bought toys? They're collectibles, Huey justified before adding. They're worth a lot back home. Got all this for like $20. Frenchie meanwhile pulled out a high-end chemistry set that caught Gwen's eye. I didn't know you were into chemistry. Oh, it's a hobby of mine, Frenchie told her with a smile, already mentally going over the formulas to make some of his favorite DRGS. All while Max gave him a side glare. Elena, Kimiko, what did you guys get? Gwen then asked, turning to the brand new female members. Kimiko beamed as she pulled out a kite, bringing back memories of the times she flew these with her brother. Elena then pulled out a laptop computer that by the boys' earth looked like an old Dell, but was much more advanced than the latest products from Apple. This mall really does have everything. We could just spend the whole summer here, Ben suggests. Just then a burglar alarm sounds, and the mall security comes running out to take down the shadowy robbers down. Halt in the name of mall security, one of the officers orders in vain. They even have their own police force, Max said, slightly surprised as he watched the chase. Looks like the rent-a-cops could use a little help, Ben said with a smile as he put bags down. A hero's work is never done. He then cycles through omnitrix silhouettes before transforming into Green Flash. Wildmutt then went after the thieves along with mall security. While in pursuit of the two robbers, masked in shadows, they are able to get onto a higher level in the parking structure by using a nearby street lamp as something to kick off of, puzzling the pursuing officers. They are then further shocked to see Wildmutt too, swinging up to follow them. As the thieves made it up the next level, Wildmutt caught up to them and knocked the figures to the ground, scattering the jewels. To his surprise, however, he finds that the two robbers were two normal-looking senior citizens. But they aren't as they seem when they start doing gymnastics, jump off concrete pillars and land a kick directly onto Wildmutt's face. Wildmutt tried in vain to fight back, but they were able to dodge all of his hits and all their blows seemed to land. The elderly man then dodged another swing of Wildmutt's, before jumping on one of the concrete beams and springboarding off it to deliver a strong enough blow to knock Wildmutt on his back. The Volpomancer quickly got back up with a growl. Sirens were heard and Wildmutt saw that the mall security officers in their vehicles had reached their position. But as the alien turned towards the elderly criminals, he was shocked to see that they were gone. They let loose some kind of rabid dog to cover their tracks. One of the mall cops said as he and his colleagues had their weapons drawn. Get him, he ordered. Before they could, Wildmutt jumped over them and made a break for the exit, with the mall cops quickly trying to chase him down. As Wildmutt ran down the ramp, one of the rust buckets pulled up and he got in before driving off. The officers pursuing saw the rust bucket drive off and began chasing after it. They must be trying to escape in that RV, the officer reasoned before ordering his fellow mall cop to cut him off. This they did, by going off-road and block its path. Unfortunately, this forced the driver to veer to the right and crash into a pole. The police quickly went in the RV to locate Wildmutt. Instead of finding a beast, the lead officer found the boys and Ben. Oi! Butcher exclaimed in anger from the driver's seat. What's wrong with you wankers? You coulda killed us. Butcher continued, pretending to be outraged. What seems to be the problem, officer? Asked in a much more calming tone, as the officer looked around in confusion. After a few minutes and a tow to the parking lot, the mall cops left with a promise to cover the cost of repairs. What happened in there, Petit Benji? Frenchie asked when it was safe. It was weird, Ben began, but before further into detail Elena chimed in. I just hacked the footage for the garage. she informed with a smile. "Oh, you guys are gonna wanna see this," she added with certainty. The rest of the boys soon gathered around the screen and saw Wildmutt get a beating from the elderly robbers before breaking out laughing. Butcher was the first to share his thoughts. "I can't believe you got your arse kicked by a couple of crusty geezers. We've seen you take on the 7, but you lose to a couple of old folks. What is with this dimension?" Questions, slightly baffled. "Hey, they weren't regular old people." Ben counters, then did some poor martial art poses. "They were fighting like they were in a kung fu movie." "Kung fu old people?" Huey questioned, both confused and amused. "Wish we had those problems." Scene cut. It's next morning and everyone is back at Megamalopolis. Max, Butcher, and Huey were doing some more shopping. Meanwhile Gwen, Frenchie, Kimiko, Ben and Elena went off on their own. "Nice going last night, hero," Gwen stated with total sarcasm. "Not only did you let the robbers get away, but because they thought your furry butt was inside, they played demolition derby with your buddy's rust bucket." "Relax." Ben brushed off as he sipped his drink. "The mall is gonna pay for all the repairs, and it bought us a few more days here while we wait for the parts. You should be thanking me," he told her before continuing to sip his drink. "I guess you're right," Gwen admitted before saying, "Nice job, Wildmutt." Then happily gives Ben a slap on the back, causing him to spit his drink. "Walked right into that one petite Benji," Frenchie said with a chuckle as they continue on until Gwen finds a bulletin board that catches her attention. "Ha! The amazing Sublimino, MSTR of hypnosis, last day. Cool. Let's check it out," the redhead stated with excitement. "Gee, and to think we almost missed him," Ben sarcastically replies. "Come on hero, it could be fun," Elena reasoned as they headed towards the show where an audience began to form on the set-out chairs in front of the stage. A voice then came out over the speakers as spectators gathered. "Ladies and gentlemen, presenting Sublimino, the MSTR of hypnosis." A purple sparkly cloud of smoke erupted just before a small man, with a somewhat bald head, big, round sunglasses, and a red-colored vest came out through it, coughing. As he made his way to the microphone he tripped on his coattails and nearly fell down. Kimiko giggled and signed to Elena who replied with, "No, Tom Cruise is a smidge taller. Behold Sublimino." The hypnotist introduced himself with a cough before continuing. "I am about to take you on a journey through that mysterious realm known as the mind. First, I shall require some volunteers." His request was met with a mostly silent audience. "Ugh. Give me a break. Only somebody with half a brain can be hypnotized," Ben commented with annoyance. "Hey, here's a volunteer for you," Gwen excitedly offered, lifting her cousin's arm up. "Me? Forget it." Ben tried to refuse, bring his arm back down. "What's the matter? Afraid you don't have half a brain?" Gwen teased. Ben just sighed and reluctantly gets on the stage, with two others, a short elderly woman and an old man. Their Sublimino began his hypnosis process. "Now clear your minds. Focus only on this pocket watch as it swings back and forth." He instructs as he starts swinging a pocket watch back and forth, which the volunteers are paying. "Your eyelids are feeling heavy. You are falling into a deep sleep." It seemed like it wasn't working as the volunteers looked at each other with Ben shrugging his shoulders. Seeing that they aren't being affected at all, Sublimino reaches out for another watch, but this time, he presses a button to emit some sort of wave, which makes them fall asleep standing up. "Did that look a little weird to you guys?" Elena asks. Kimiko and Frenchie just shrugged with the latter saying, "Performers, everything is weird." Gwen meanwhile just smiled and pulled up her newly purchased video camcorder. "Major blackmail time," she said with a mischievous grin. Elena just looked towards Gwen and said, "Good thing for Ben live streaming doesn't exist here yet." With the others. Well, parts should be here in a day or so, then we can get back on the road. Max told the boys. It's alright, mate. Butcher dismissed, patting Max on his shoulder. No rush for us anyway. Our destination is a whole other dimension. Huey just shakes his head. Still feels weird hearing that and actually living it. He comments for what feels like the 100th time. How do we get back to our dimension anyway? Eminem questions. Beats me. Time and interdimensional travel was above my pay grade. Max answers with full honesty, having mostly sent aliens into the null void. Not sure how the null void projector sent Ben to your world. Just then they see a crowd gathering at Sublimino's show, with Ben as part of the act. Is that Benji? Butcher asked, baffled as to why he was crying on stage like a baby. Let's check it out. Suggested, and the four of them made their way through the giggling crowd. They soon joined Kimiko, Frenchie, Elena and Gwen, who was still recording, where they watched Ben with the other two volunteers cluck like chickens in a barnyard. Why is Ben acting like a chicken? Huey says, voicing the other three's those. It's my early Christmas present. Gwen said with an evil grin, still recording. Gee, and I thought Vought was evil. Butcher muttered. Sublimino continued his show. You are a ballerina. You are a ferocious grizzly bear. He commanded, causing the man to twirl around like a ballerina and the elderly women to roar like a bear. This is so funny. A smiling Gwen commented. Wonder what he's gonna make Ben do. Huey wondered, seeing the woman still roaring like a bear. And you, my lad. Sublimino took a moment to think before deciding. You are an alien. He commanded, and Ben began to activate the omnitrix. Guess that. Stated. Joke's over. Max said with alarm. Elena grabbed one of the chairs and handed it to Kimiko. Throw this at a window. She ordered. Kimiko nods before throwing it, with her enhanced strength it easily shattered a store window. The loud noise caused the crowd to turn away from the stage. But Ben was still dialing a transformation. Ben, no. Gwen runs up to the stage as Ben is just about to activate it, and pushes him behind the curtain as he transforms. Sublimino went behind the curtains and glared at Gwen. You are ruining the performance. He said with a growl in his voice. Sorry. Gwen apologized. My cousin had to run to the little alien's room. With that, Sublimino left. When he did, Gwen held up gray matter, who hypnotically said. Take me to your leader. Your will is my command. This caused Gwen to grin fiendishly. Later that night. Max was busy doing the tune-ups for the boys' RV along with Butcher was with Huey going over some of the weapons and schematics of the RV so that when they got back to their home dimension they could more easily use their new tools. In the Tennyson RV, Frenchie was working with his chemistry set, while Elena, Kimiko, Gwen and Ben reviewed the video if Ben under hypnosis. Ugh, this is so embarrassing. Ben said, both annoyed and embarrassed, seeing himself act like a baby and then a chicken. Kimiko smiles and signs to Elena, who says. She's right, at least Vought can't use this. Oh, they would love this. Ben states, just picturing Coleman and Homelander's reaction if they saw the video. It would probably look a lot like Gwen's expression right now. Soaking of. Here's my favorite part. Gwen says, getting their attention back to the video. More grapes, MSTR. Gray matter spoke, feeding grapes to a relaxing Gwen. Aw man. Ben whined, then turned to Kimiko and Elena. You just let this happen. Back to the video, it shows gray matter coming out of the bathroom with a scrub brush. The toilet has been scrubbed. Really? Ben exclaimed in surprise. You guys too? Elena shrugged and replied. Sorry, but it was my turn and I really didn't want to clean after a bunch of boys. To which Ben just groaned as watched the footage of gray matter combing Gwen's hair, where he reverts back into Ben, falling off the edge of the sofa, and snapping out of the trance and back to normal. Too bad you snapped out of it when the omnitrix timed out. I was going to have you do a hot oil conditioning treatment next. Gwen said with a big grin. Good thing you didn't. Frenchie said with appreciation, looking at the empty bottles he used for his experiment. You know what's even better than that? Ben asked. His cousin, before she could even answer he swiped the camera. Erase buttons. He answered. Give that back. Gwen exclaimed in annoyance and the two began to fight over it, until Kimiko grabbed it from both of them and erased it. Ah, come on, haven't you always wanted blackmail on your brother? As usual Kimiko stayed silent, but this time she walked away. What did I say? Gwen asked. Family is a sore subject for her. Elena answered, as she started to go after Kimiko. Ugh. Gwen grunted, mentally berating herself for being so inconsiderate. I better go apologize. Just then Grandpa Max came in. Where are they off to? He asks, then notices Frenchie messing with his newly purchased chemistry set. Get your cousin and tell her it's time to get some shut-eye. Ben tried to argue. Why do I have to dash? But was cut off. Now Benjamin. Max said in a more authoritative tone and Ben proceeded to get his cousin. When he walked outside Max headed towards Frenchie, who went to get another ingredient, and dumped the entire set into the trash. What are you dash? Frenchie was about to exclaim but was stopped when Max pushed him against the wall. You keep that filthy poison far away from my grandkids if you still want to have teeth. He told the Frenchman. I don't know entirely what it's like in your dimension but here we work hard to make sure that poison stays away from kids. And I'm more than happy to keep you all in an old plumber cell until we can send you back. Max then releases him and gives him the trashed chemistry set. Maintenance soars DCI. Frenchie then did just that, understanding what Butcher meant when he talked about being threatened by Max back in Niagara Falls. Next day. In the mall the Tennysons and company walked around since there was still some time before they could get back on the road. As the clock tower rang Ben yawned, despite being asleep all night. Oi kid you alright? Butcher asked with concern. Yeah, you don't seem as peppy as usual. Max added, having similar thoughts as Butcher. Just a little tired. Ben replied, trying to dismiss their concerns. That's all. Huey then chimed in. What were you doing last night though? Remembering he woke up briefly because of a distinct bright green flash. Sleeping. Ben answered. Before Huey could further question it they came to a scene by one of the mall's indoor rides. Whoa. What happened? Gwen asked one of the mall cops. Somebody stole the motor from the Sea Dragon ride. Probably a prank by some punk kids. The mall cop concluded. Some prank. Muttered. What do you make of this? Another mall cop says holding what appears to be one of Diamond Head's shard projectiles, which immediately catches the attention of both the Tennysons and the boys. What? I didn't do it. I swear. Ben denies instantly, but only gets more skeptical looks. Hey, I'm not the only alien in the galaxy, you know. And you're both here at the same time? Asks. What would I even do with some motor from a kid's ride? Ben points out. Has to be someone else. Didn't you say Kevin tried to frame you a while back? Elena says, remembering the many tales. But that Blaireau is still with Vought. Frenchie chimes in. All I'm saying is it wasn't me. Ben reaffirms. Scene cut. Later that night when the clock tower slid midnight, large psychic waves were released through the mall area. This left most unaffected, but a certain hero was. In a trance-like state Ben was awakened and quickly jumped down from the bunk bed with a large thud and headed towards the door. Ben, where are you going at this time of night? Gwen questioned, having woken up, but all she got in response was silence as Ben activated the faceplate of the Omnitrix. Hello. Earth to doofus. I asked you a question. Ben still pays her no attention as he chooses an alien and slaps down the dial. Green flash. Ben has now transformed into Upgrade and began heading outside. Wait, you can't go out like that. Gwen protested, but it was useless as Upgrade ignored her and phased through the door. It was at this time Grandpa Max had woken up and together with Gwen followed Upgrade out of the RV, seeing him navigate through the electricity lines to the buildings. He must be sleepwalking. Max concludes, realizing this must be why diamond head shards were found at the crime scene earlier. As Upgrade made his way to the top of the mall, he was hit by a spotlight from a mall security helicopter. Halt in the name of mall security. A voice announced through the loudspeaker. Upgrade soon began to clamber up the mall's clock tower with the helicopters. Meanwhile the boys joined the stupefied Tennysons. Ben, wake up. You're sleepwalking. Gwen shouts. It's no use, Gwen. He can't hear you. He probably has no idea what he's doing. Max tells her as police officers arrive onto the scene. So what else is new? Gwen replies. Back on top of the tower the helicopters circled Upgrade and soon began to fire lasers from its machine gun. Huey's hands go to his head as he exclaims. Holy machine gun fire. Is that even legal? Aslo exclaims in shock, turning towards Max. What kind of explosion does your military have? Butcher asks amazed. Meanwhile Upgrade's body melted, for lack of a better word, on top of the mall, but he easily recovered. In his blob form he launches himself and merges with one of the helicopters before using it to shoot the others and the ground forces with green energy blasts. Upgrade pilots the helicopter beside the clock tower before leaping out and merging himself with the clock. The clock turned black and green and briefly stayed still before Upgrade began turning the arms at high speed, turning them into propellers and flying away like giant helicopter. Time sure flies when you go alien. Elena says, voicing Gwen's exact thought, just before Ben flies by them and off to who knows where. What just happened? Huey shouts. Frenchie then holds up a bottle of wine he bought and subsequently drank earlier. Either the wine here is better than any DRG in our dimension or our shape-shifting friend just stole a giant clock. Later. Once the cops and other bystanders dispersed, the boys and Tennysons gathered. Any word on Ben? Gwen asked. We took a listen on the squawker and it's as quiet as a mouse in church about Benji. Butcher answered. Has anyone tried calling him? Huey suggests. He's 10. Max states. He doesn't have a cell phone, not from us at least. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure T-Mobile doesn't cover interdimensional travel. Elena points out. Just then they heard the rumbling of a very loud machine that was getting louder by the second. A few moments later a bulldozer turned the corner and based off the black and green color it was obvious Upgrade was controlling it. Holy screech! Huey exclaimed jumping in fear just as the bulldozer came to a halt. Green flash. The construction vehicle then returned to its normal color with the blade raised above the rust bucket, where light snoring could be heard. Guess we don't need to look for him now. Gwen simply said. Morning. Inside the Tennyson rust bucket everyone gathered to the TV to see the news about last night. Despite the chaos and calamity the mall's owner would not close, saying it was an isolated incident and nothing more. So why would I go alien and then steal bizarre stuff like a roller coaster motor and a big clock? A sleepy confused Ben asked. Max then answered with. Well, sleepwalkers are in a hyper-dream state, nothing makes sense in a dream. Except our sleepwalker is wearing a watch full of alien at their control. I don't think there's a guidebook for dealing with that. States. Kimiko then makes some gestures to Elena who recites. What that subliminal guy? He did make Ben act like a giant chicken. Ben groaned remembering the video. Don't remind me. Yeah, but don't those blokes need some trigger word or some poppycock to work? Butcher pointed out. Regardless. Max began. We're gonna have to keep Ben awake and away from people until we can figure out how to stop his midnight strolls. As Ben starts to doze off, Gwen throws water in her cousin's face, waking him with a jolt. Sorry, just doing my job. Gwen said with a smile, already enjoying it. Whatever. Ben replies, not really bothered by it, which confused Gwen a bit. Later. Outside the boys' RV, Max was doing some repairs when a slightly frustrated Gwen came out. Everything alright, sweetie? He asked. I'm fine. Gwen stated. Just they ruined my fun, again. Max then looked at his watch and realized it was a shift change for monitoring Ben. Lucky Ben. Max stated, realizing that if the boys had not been here Gwen would have had a longer shift, doing all sorts of things to keep Ben awake. Scene cut. In the boys' RV, Ben was resting his head on the table when he received a jolt from him. Stay awake. Trying. Ben said, already nearly back to sleep. Allow me. Frenchie stated, coming in with a freshly made powdery substance. This will keep you awake and focused. Before Ben could take it, ripped it from Frenchie's hands. Nah, Not only did you dig your science SH stuff out of the trash, but this ain't for kids, Frenchie. He said. It's not that. Frenchie tried to argue. It's just something for him to stay awake, not get high. As they argued, Ben fell back asleep and ripe for Sublimino's psychic waves. So just take that dash, tried to say when they were interrupted by a green flash. They looked to see Heat Blast inside and was making his way outside. Can someone turn down the heat? Huey said, still sleepy and feeling worn. Starting to boil here. However, when the door slammed shut, everyone awoke, except Elena, Kimiko, Gwen and Max, who were all in the Tennyson RV. Oi! Butcher exclaimed as they all ran outside to see Heat Blast stand for a moment before flying off somewhere. Just then the Tennyson RV opened up. Okay. Elena spoke. Whose fault was it? Immediately and Frenchie pointed to each other, with Huey and Butcher pointing to one of the two as well. This wouldn't have happened under my watch. Gwen pointed out. Scene cut. After following police chatter, they tracked Heat Blast to a large hardware store. Man, this place puts Home Depot to shame. Huey commented, looking shrouded as they ran through the store. They soon find Heat Blast by melting the steel chains into a large cable, then blew a hole into the doors so the elderly couple Ben fought as Wildmutt could pull it with a forklift. Oi Benji, cool it. Butcher shouted. Snap out of it, Ben. Max added, before everyone had to duck for cover from a fireball. You're under a hypnotic spell or something. Gwen tried to persuade. I don't think he's in a talkative mood. Sarcastically pointed. As Heat Blast was readying another fireball, he was by some kind of foamy substance until he was buried in it. They turned to see that Elena, Kimiko and Frenchie holding onto some kind of hose attached to a large container holding some kind of firefighting foam. This place really does have everything. Elena spoke with a smile. Just then. Boom. Heat Blast blew apart the foam and blasted the container, just as Kimiko, Frenchie and Elena moved for cover. I thought this stuff stopped fires. Elena exclaimed. Class B fire. Frenchie clarified. Designed for flammable liquids, not alien glass shatters. The cops come in to get Heat Blast, though they first get the Tennysons and boys out of harm's way, and fire smoke grenades at Heat Blast. But all that does is cause Heat Blast to shoot flames erratically and into a bunch of propane tanks. Boom. And fortunately, with everyone getting to a safe distance before Heat Blast created an explosion, though debris is sent flying. Scene cut. Everyone was in one of the RVs as Elena typed on her new computer, showing some hacked security footage of Sublimino activating his watch that he used to hypnotize Ben during the show the other day. Told you something was fishy about that guy. Elena gloated slightly. So Sublimino plants post-hypnotic suggestions in his volunteers, turning them into his army of thieves. Max concluded. Pretty smart. Compliments. Keeps his hands clean, and if they get caught they won't remember doing it for him. But the sound of the omnitrix timing out snaps Ben out of the trance. Gwen pointed out. Everyone stops as they hear the sound of Ben snoring, then cover their ears as Gwen actives to blow horn by his ear to wake him up. After a quick jolt Ben replies. But why have me steal all that weird stuff? Who knows? Butcher states. Sublimino does. We need to find him, and fast. Max added. Scene cut. Max just got back from trying to convince the mall's owner to shut down, but Bit was a bust. Well, so much for trying to shut down the mall. Max sighed as he joined the rest of the boys and Ben. Any luck with the police? No, they think our theory is ridiculous. Huey answered. Yeah. Frenchie added. 'Cause a man made a fire destroying a hardware store is pretty normal. He said with sarcasm. They then notice Ben asleep at the running water fountain. Oi, kid, wake up. Butcher urged, giving him a nudge. Oh, Mom, I'm too tired to go to school. Ben groaned. His head was soaked and his eyelids were barely open. I've got the perfect solution to your sleepwalking problem. Gwen announced as she came over with a shopping bag and pulled out a pair of HNDCFFS. If you can't touch the omnitrix, you can't go alien. Where'd you get those? Ben questioned with a raised eyebrow. Survivalists are us. They have a very extensive selection. Gwen answered as she handcuffed Ben. Did they have any fluffy one? Frenchie asked with a smile, earning a smack on the arm from him. Why would they have those? Gwen curiously asks, as she finishes handcuffing Ben. I don't know about this, Gwen. Max voices. What could go wrong? Was Gwen's reply. What if the kid needs to use it to stop an attack? Butcher points out. Before they could talk about it further, Sublimino's face appeared on every screen in the mall as a large clock was lowered from the ceiling. The same clock Ben stole as upgrade. Greetings, mall rats. I am Sublimino, MSTR of Hypnosis. You are all about to take a journey through that mysterious realm known as the mind. He spoke, repeating the same line from his act the other day. No need to volunteer, now all of you will obey me forever. He added with a villainous grin. The Tennysons, boys, and all the mall goers looked with mixed reactions as the large clock started swaying. Your eyelids are getting very heavy. You are falling into a deep sleep. His plan is a giant hypno watch. What idiot falls for that? Asked, then notices the look on Ben's face, reminding him that Ben himself was a victim of a hypnotic watch. Sorry. Just then Sublimino activates his smaller watch, which was connected to the larger clock, to release the hypnotic waves, this time, affecting all the shoppers. Soon people start to fall down as the waves passed by them. Seeing this, the Tennysons and the boys began tried to run away from it. Don't look at the clock. Don't look at the clock. Ben said as the waves were catching up to them. He and Elena then jumped behind a load-bearing square support column and Huey jumped behind a decorative fake plant just in time. However, everyone else was not so lucky. Okay, how did the three of us outrun it, but not them? Elena asked. Guess we do more cardio. Ben answered as he got up. You can one of you find the key? On it. Huey answered as he started going through Gwen's bag. Elena meanwhile went to an unconscious Kimiko and tried to shake her awake. Wakey wakey, eggs and bakey, come on. She urged for a bit then stopped. No good, they're out cold. Just great. Ben replied as he lowered his arms and stepped back over them, so his hands were now at least in front his body. Any luck, Huey? He asked. I found the package the HNDCFFS were in. Huey began, then sheepishly added. Says, keys sold separately. Oh, Gwen is so lucky she's passed out right now. Ben said, glaring at his cousin. All arise and obey my every command every minute of every day. Sublimino commanded, causing everyone's eyes to open wide, and they quickly rose up now under Sublimino's control, including Gwen, Max and the rest of the boys. Now, bring me all the riches of this place. He ordered. Various shoppers begin looting expensive items, including cars, cash machines, and prize money in jars. Anything of any significant value was taken. Ben looks around, quickly finds a nearby key maker's booth, and the metal grinder was on. He uses it to grind down the chain metal from his cuffs, freeing his hands. You may control every last person, Ben says as he dials in an alien and slaps down the omnitrix. Green flash. But what about a plant? Wildvine says as he leaves the booth and flings his arm up to another level. Hey. Elena called out, getting Ben's attention. What are we supposed to do? She questioned. Wildvine just shrugged. Stay safe. Ben answers before lifting himself up to the upper levels of the mall, with Sublimino ordering him to stop like he was one of his hypnotized victims. Ben will stop that guy, right? Huey asks as he sees Frenchie picking a secure lock for a vault at a diamond store. Maybe, but we gotta make sure no one can leave with the loot. Elena says, then starts running. Come on. She urges, and they head to a security for a mall cop by one of the exits, completely empty. Elena takes a seat and starts typing. Okay, this shouldn't be too hard. Huey gives her a confused look and asks. What ain't you doing it and how? Trying to activate a lockdown. Elena answers as she continues to type. That way Sublimino can't leave even if Ben can't stop him. And there. Presses one more key, causing all the mall's entrances to be sealed by steel gates. Whoa. I think this mall is more secure than our Pentagon. Huey states. Now what? Sublimino's voice echoed before his face appeared on the computer screen. Who you and why are you not obeying me? Maybe 'cause your act is just like your outfit, cheap and outdated. Elena shot back. First that plant guy, now you. Sublimino replies with a growl. Open those doors or you shall par for your insolence. Yeah, well, make us. Huey countered, feeling confident. My slaves. Sublimino began. Those not going after the plant thing, go after the little girl and the scrawny man in the security booth on the bottom floor. The hypnotized boys then stopped their pilfering and turned to Elena and Huey. Got any ideas? Huey questioned. Yeah. Run. Elena said and bolted as fast as her legs could carry her. After a moment of shock, Huey soon followed, along with their hypnotized friends. Scene cut. As Wildvine landed on the walkway of one of the upper levels, a red car came barreling towards him, hitting the plant like alien. Wildvine hung on the front of the car as the driver drove on with a blank stare. The car turned, hitting the window of one store, shattering it, then dove down a flight of stairs, flinging the alien upwards on top of the car. Wildvine then looks at Jed and sees the car is about to crash in a toy store. Emergency brake. Ben exclaimed, before extending his arm into the red Mini Cooper and pulling the brake, stopping the car. But the force caused Wildvine to be thrown onto the display window. Just then a blue car of the same model comes racing towards him, with Gwen in the driver's seat and Max in the passenger seat. Wildvine successfully dodges this by shooting one of his arms towards the ceiling and pulling himself up. Hey, how come Gwen gets to drive? Wildvine asked, before seeing them drive straight into a guardrail, breaking it. Ben dropped down to the car hanging off the ledge and tipping over. Grandpa. Gwen. He shouts at the car finally goes over. He jumps after them. His lower vines wrapped tightly around the broken guard rail. He drives under car and extends his upper body upwards until he can grabs onto another railing, using his back to slow the car's descent. Hang on. Wildvine grits through his teeth as he starts to lose his grip and eventually falls to the ground, though having saved his family. Oof. Wildvine then looks to see an elevator heading upwards and grabs onto it. He rides it for a little while before shooting his vine arm towards a security office control center. Going up. He quipped. Wildvine enters by crashing through the window. Show's over. He says to Sublimino with a growl. Sublimino seemed unworried and with a casual cross of his arms ordered. Trim that hedge. Wildvine then heard the distinct sound of a chainsaw and turned to see the two hypnotized volunteers from the show come in with said tools. Then through another door came the elderly folks he fought as Wildmutt, also holding chainsaws. The four ran at Wildvine, but the alien pulled himself to the ceiling before they could and released the pods on his back. When the pods hit the ground they released a gas that knocked the elderly folks out. Scene cut. Huey and Elena were running from their friends when they came to a crossroads. Split up. Huey exclaimed, and he went into a sports equipment store and Elena into a large appliance store. Butcher, Frenchie and went after Huey, while Kimiko chased down Elena. Huey ran down one of the aisles and slowed momentarily as he turned back to see if someone was following him. He saw no one, but when he looked forward he skidded to a halt and ducked as tried to swing a wooden bat to Huey's head. Huey quickly jumped up and started backing up, while also taking a football helmet and putting it on. Come. It's me you gotta dash. Huey tried to reason, but just blankly advanced and swung the bat hitting Huey in the head, causing him to stumble a bit. Oh man! He groaned as he grabbed something to steady himself. It was a storage cage of various sports ball. Immediately Huey started throwing them at with little success as he kept advancing and raised the bat for a swing. Ah! Huey yelped as quickly picked up the next ball to try and block the swing. Turns out it was a basketball and when the bat made contact it bounced right back into M's forehead, knocking him back. Huey then threw the ball at his head knocking him out. Sorry. Huey apologized. Oh, I better not regret that later. Huey said, already thinking about how might react. However, he didn't have time to ponder that because a tennis ball hit him in the head. He turned to see Frenchie by an automatic tennis ball launcher that was reminiscent of some sort of cannon. Frenchie turned up the setting on launcher to its highest level, increasing the rate to that of a semi-automatic gun. Huey quickly ran and ducked behind some mannequins with hockey gear on them. Which gave Huey the idea to use one as a shield and run at the hypnotized Frenchman and did so. Ah! Huey screamed terrified as he pushed the mannequin forward until eventually hitting Frenchie, causing him to fall to the ground. Okay, so Frenchie, that leaves, Huey listed off, realizing who he had to either avoid or fight next. That's when a pair of hands grabbed and started to throw him around the large store. First to the side where several golf shoes were displayed, then to a rack of golf clubs before being shoved towards a few more mannequins dressed in golf clothes, knocking a couple down and landing on the floor. Oof, Butcher. Of course it's Butcher. Huey groaned as he slowly got back up. As Huey got back up he saw the hypnotized Butcher grab a golf club and was getting ready to use it. Immediately Huey scrambled to get out of the way, which he did just in time. Butcher, please stop. Huey uselessly pleaded as he ducked another swing, then grabbed the closest thing he could and swung it at Butcher. It was a mannequin's he grabbed by the wrist, hitting Butcher in the face with the shoulder end of it. This staggered the hypnotized Butcher for a moment, allowing Huey to club him again with the mannequin arm, knocking him down. Wow, I actually don't feel bad about that. Huey admitted, glancing down at his weapon of choice. Appliance store. In the large appliance store Elena was having a somewhat difficult time with Kimiko. With her being a soup, Kimiko could more easily track her down and keep up with her. Only reason Elena wasn't caught yet was because her smaller size her to squeeze in between areas that Kimiko needed to force her way through. Leaving a wreck of refrigerators, stoves, ovens, washing machines and other such things. Still Elena couldn't keep this up forever. When the young girl rounded a girl she spotted signs showing the floor had been waxed, a Franklin hardwood dolly and a large industrial walk-in freezer wide open. Grabbing the dolly, she threw herself forward with it, lying on her stomach, gliding down the floor on her makeshift skateboard. She knocked over the sign. Elena then tried to grab the door frame to stop herself, but when she did, her whole body got turned around and she slipped off the dolly. Ow! She groaned as she slowly got up the still waxed floor. It was then Kimiko had rounded the corner and was heading towards Elena with everything she had. However, she didn't know the floor had been waxed, and without the sign she didn't bother to be careful. So when she stepped on the slippery floor, she slipped forward and her momentum caused her to slide towards the walk-in freezer. And when she was close enough, Elena briefly jumped onto her back with one foot and jumped off it towards the edge of the door. Elena then pushed it closed as a thud was heard, signaling Kimiko hit the wall. Elena then locked it and smiled. "Can't believe that actually worked," she said, patting herself on the back for her quick, cartoon-inspired, quick thinking. Crash screet. Until Kimiko's fist punching a small hole into the metal caused her smile to disappear. "Well, it was worth a shot," Elena said, before putting as much distance as she could between her and Kimiko. "Ben better hurry up." With Ben. After the hypnotized elderly folks were knocked out, Sublimino tried to run away, but Wildvine was able to extend his body to catch him. The plant-like alien used his vines to grab the alien and lifted him up and over the railing above the large clock. Beep 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 beep. Wildvine looked down and saw the omnitrix was timing out. Red flash. Ben loses him when he reverts back into his human, and they fall down to the giant clock. Ben on the minute hand and Sublimino below him on the hour hand. "You!" Sublimino exclaimed in anger, remembering him from the show the other day. "I will put you in a trance from which you will never recover," he swore as he pulled out his hypno watch, getting ready to use it. But as the hand counting the seconds came by, Ben grabbed onto it. With his extra weight it caused it to move around faster. When he passed by Sublimino he grabbed his watch. "Give that back, you brat," Sublimino demanded. Still spinning, Ben activates the watch and snaps everyone out of Sublimino's trance. "Everyone, wake up. You're all free," he ordered as the hypnotic waves were released throughout the mall, bringing everyone back to their senses. "No. No, no. It isn't fair," Sublimino whined, seeing Biss' plan fall apart. Still spinning on the second hand, Ben smirked at this. "Now who's the baby?" Sublimino reaches out to get Ben but loses his grip from the clock's hand, falling down and onto a bouncy castle, though still hitting the hard floor in a rebound. He quickly gets up and makes a run for it, although Max was fast enough to open the display car door and have him run into it, knocking him out. "Looks like your time is up," Max quipped as he stepped out. Gwen then went forward and shouted, "Nice job, Ben," however her only response was silence. Ben. Turns out, shortly after Sublimino fell to the ground, Ben fell asleep on the clock due to the lack of sleep from being under Sublimino's control that past few nights. Scene cut. The Tennyson and the boys were now back on the road. In the Tennyson RV, Ben was putting his latest souvenir in his box as he was with Gwen and Elena at the table. "Oh, Onimo's transmitter thingy. Remember this?" Ben questioned, holding up the device from their Washington B.C. adventure. "You mean where the giant bird carried me to the top of a monument and I almost fell to my doom? No," Gwen replied sarcastically, nor particularly fond of that memory. Elena Wren reached out and pulled something. "Oh, what's this?" she asked. "Oh, my hoverboard from Tetrax." Ben remembered, expanding it. "Forgot about this." Meanwhile in the boys' RV, Huey was driving behind the Tennysons, while Kimiko nursed the injured boys with ice packs and frozen peas. "I just want to state again how sorry I am for hurting you guys, but I, had dash dot." "Hugh!" Butcher shouted, cutting Huey off as he took the frozen peas off his face for a moment. "Just shut up and drive." "Don't worry, petite Huey," Frenchie reassured. "Our revenge will come when you least expect it," he warned, causing the drive to gulp in fear slightly. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for more crossovers. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author AU-Fan62 on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.